Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Archlector George,
and Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
As you all know, we are covering The Blade itself, the first book in the original trilogy. We'll be covering old friends and back to the mud on this episode. So let's get started. Just want to thank you all again for your support. Thank you so much. Just wanted to remind you guys if you can get on the socials and our YouTubes, because actually we will be releasing some more stuff. We're doing the What If video. I know Harrison was upset we couldn't get it done earlier.
I was very happy about it. Sorry, guys.
He was very upset. And we're going to be releasing another segment on social media and the YouTube. Should we tell them what it is or not yet?
I think we should wait. You know, keep the anticipation coming.
Keep it coming. All right. Just keep an eye out. You know, be twice a week.
Think about Hans Zimmer anticipation music. That's
So just keep an eye out. It'll be starting by the time this episode airs. It'll already have come out. 2 times, twice the segments will have aired on our social media platforms and on YouTube. So just keep an eye out.
And just so you know, guys, we're going to be having a website going up this week, so you can check out all of the AI art, and you can send us comments, leave reviews on different episodes if you want, and there's a little discussion thing in there as well. So that'll be nice, because obviously we don't want to clog up the subreddit with our fucking posts. So just head on over there. It's just thecircleoftheworld.com.
Mm-hmm. It'll be up, you think, by the time the episode airs, George?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, sweet.
Well, it has to be now that I've said
it. A round of applause for Archlector for putting it all together.
Yay!
Thank you.
Your Eminence!
I believe your eminence is the proper term of address. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was your fuckhead.
Oof.
Ooh, sorry. But no, George is working hard on the website, everyone. So keep a lookout for that. You know, by the time the episode airs, just head on over there. And we're just trying to make it more professional for everyone. All right. So let's move on to our next segment. Our first one, actually. And it's Best Meme of the Week, as per usual. George.
So this week we have user Tam El Bor, who was the only person to post on House of the Meme Maker this week. So congratulations, Tam El Bor. And
one by default.
Yeah, one by default. Again, I think this is the 4th time you've been on this, and we know you're listening. So congratulations. But it's a meme that's basically exalting the qualities of the audiobook once again, and Stephen Pacey's fantastic performance. So well done.
Bravo.
Well done.
Thank you, Tam El Bor. You're keeping this section alive all by yourself.
Without you, there wouldn't be no Circle of the World podcast.
Tam El Bor's back must be breaking at this point. Awesome. Well, now let's move on to our first chapter read-through. And this chapter is Old Friends. So we begin this chapter with Glokta. He's just chilling at his table when there came a knocking. Glokta was surprised, at this because, he doesn't get much visitors, right? He just gets Barnum and maybe some Frost and maybe anticipating his impending death at the hands of the Archlector or Goyle, right?
I feel like Frost doesn't have to knock, though. He'd just be in straight away, wouldn't he? Whispering in his ear.
Archlector. So he opens the door and he's actually dumbfounded to see Major West at his doorway. It's a bit of an awkward situation, and Glokta is ice cold to West. But he allows West to enter his living quarters, right? He surveys West closely as they sit silently at the table, and he notices that West looks old, haggard, and worried. So Glokta knows that something's on his mind. But West doesn't look like he'll be speaking anytime soon, so Glokta breaks the ice, and ask him, how long has it been since they last saw each other? And West promptly answers with 9 years, right? And Glockta
And
kind
I
of
love this line here as well. The memory of that unfortunate meeting hung between them like a fart.
fart like a fart.
I also like here how Galacta, we see him examine a lot of people, and he's always like trying to guess what kind of person they are. And up to this point, it's only been like people he's tortured, and so this is like an actuality, And with West, we know who he is already. We've been inside of his head, so whenever we see Galacta examining him, it's interesting to see how other people see West, and to see how right Galacta is when he is trying to guess people's intentions and what's on their mind and stuff. He's very good at reading people, and I feel
Yeah.
like this is actually the first time we get to we see how good he actually is at it. Because before it's just like, oh, sure, he says that. We don't actually know for sure if he's good at reading people, and now we know because we know what's going on with West.
That's true. Look, yeah,
That's a really good point.
Glock is very, very good at reading people for the most part. He struggled a little bit with bias, but he's getting there. He's getting there. So Glockta obviously ruminates on that last memory of them the last time they actually saw each other, not counting the time that they saw each other in the city. We can see that Glockta believed himself to be a fool to think that he could have taken on the Gurkish army single-handedly, and that he ponders if he would have been better remembered if he had died that day. This is him speaking out loud. Harrison, I know you pointed out that you think that he didn't think he could stop him, but he wanted to buy the army some time to make a retreat, right?
Yeah, I think he thought, he knew it was not going to end well. I think here he was doing that thing where he's just being self-deprecating, as Glockta does. Like, he's not going to even let himself believe that he knew what he was doing. That it was all just stupid. It was all stupid. It doesn't matter, because I think that when we see a story in Sharp Ends about young Glockta, this isn't even a spoiler. We see that he is not as flamboyant, I guess, as you'd think he would be. I mean, he's pretty out there, but he's not. When he looks down at West and West is like, "Don't do it," he's like, "No, West, you stay. I'll do this." Like, yes, he was looking for glory and all that, but he probably was almost looking for more glory and death than anything else. And then he didn't die, which is why he's always like, "Man, I should have died. I should have died," because that's what he actually wanted.
Obviously, West is clearly uncomfortable about all this, and he mutters something about looking for Glockta afterwards. But Glockta is pretty dismissive of this, at least in his mind.
How fucking noble.
How fucking noble of you. He points out that West didn't come to shoot the shit, and West admits that, yeah, he's there because of his sister. Glockta is somewhat taken aback by this. It's the last thing he kind of expected West to talk to him about. And West asks Glockta that, while he'll be in England for the war effort against the North, if Glockta could keep an eye on her for West. West references how Glockta just knew how to talk to women, and he brings up a set of 3 sisters, hoping to elicit some kind of like positive reaction out of Glockta. But West was mistaken. West asks out loud, like, whatever happened to Sandan Glockta, that pillar of perfection? And then he just snaps. He basically says that Sand is dead. He died on that bridge, and a shadow came back in his place. And that this shadow has no friends and wants none. And so he tells West to go to someone else because there is nothing for him here. There's some heavy emotion coming from Glock to hear that we don't really see that much, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, so far he's, except in his inner monologue, he's just a stone wall. Nobody knows, nobody sees anything behind it.
Right.
And for this to all come out, you can tell it's quite cathartic for Glockta. This is what he's always got going on in his mind. Like, oh, why didn't anyone come to see me? Why is this? Why is that?
And then, woe is me.
Woe is it? And also the writing and especially Pacey's delivery of this scene in particular is just absolutely fantastic. It really gets you feeling it.
Harrison, you were going to say something?
I was just going to agree with George, and it's like he's been waiting to say this, especially to West, and he finally has his opportunity to say it. And I just like how anytime Glockta gets like up in people's face or he's trying to intimidate them or like lashing out, nearly everybody is always like scared or disgusted, or they avert their attention. Glock is intimidating. West is like taken aback, but he's also just is sad. And I like how that he sees how sad West is, and like he's trying to hold up this demeanor of like, oh fuck you, West, and it's even now it's a little difficult because West just is like, okay, and he gets up to walk away.
Yeah.
And then
He
Glock is
apologized.
like, yeah, he says, yeah, he apologizes, and Glock just basically throws it back in his face. He doesn't give him any room. And then
But he
he's
stops
like,
him short. He stops him from leaving,
yeah, he stops him and says, I thought that of all of my friends, he's like, I knew everybody else was a piece of crap, but you, Wes, were a true friend because I know you weren't with me just because I was famous or whatever. He's like, I thought that you were actually going to be there. I thought you would at least come see me and stuff. And Wes is
yeah.
like, she didn't tell you.
Yeah, and Glockta's confused at this. He asks Wes, who the hell is he talking about? Right? And Wes says here that, well, he did come to visit, twice at least. And the first time, it was Glockta's mother that turned him away, saying that Glockta didn't want anything to do with him or the army. Fuck you guys. And then he tried again a few months later, and then this time it was a servant that turned him away, but same result. Then he had heard that Glockta had joined the Inquisition and left for England. And after that, he put Glockta out of his mind until they ran into each other when Frost was out there black bagging merchants,
And this really makes me really sad, and obviously his mother is trying to sort of do what's best for him, but like it ends up, with just another torture that Glockta has to put up with. This memory of, nobody came to visit me, but somebody actually did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It seems unnecessarily cruel. Sorry, Jeffrey.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. It is unnecessarily cruel. What else? Give me some more.
No, I'm done. It's your turn.
I really, really appreciate this part too, because this is, in my opinion, Glockta's climax in this book. This is his. We see him this whole time. He stays the same this entire book. Very cynical. Very like I am right. I know how the world actually is. Listen, the world is a terrible place, and no one ever cares about you, and blah blah blah. It goes on and on and on, to the point that some readers might find it even annoying how cynical he actually is. But say one thing for Joe Abercrombie: say his characters do change, and this is where
you sure?
Yes, they do. Just very, very in a very human, subtle way. Because Glockta here, from this point on, in the entire story, he is a little bit different. He is because instead of being like, "Oh, the entire world is so terrible," he realizes that he was wrong. He even says here, right after Wes explains what's happened, he says that he was so busy just wallowing his own self-pity.
Mm-hmm.
That he didn't even think that could be a possibility, even though he knew his mother hated West. He just assumed the absolute worst. And he's like, and Glockta does something that hardly anybody in the entire First Law does, is almost immediately, he goes, I'm sorry, to West.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
he asked for forgiveness.
Heard that. Yeah. And I remember when I first heard that reading this book, I was like, damn, bro. I don't know why that's affecting me, but it does, because Glockta is realizing that his viewpoint on the world, as cruel as the world is, it's not 100% accurate. It's not all bad.
100%. And I like to think that little line at the end, "too busy being tragic," is sort of a wink from Joe to the reader.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think so as well.
But it's a fantastic point, Harrison.
Mm-hmm. And like Harrison said, Glockta apologizes, right? Asks for forgiveness. And he asks West to sit down and to continue on with what he was saying. And West resumes by saying that once he leaves for England, that Artie will have no one else in the city. And that believes Glockta met her like once long ago, back when he visited. And Glockta's like, yeah, and I just saw her like recently too, with Luthar.
Wes was like, that motherfucker.
Yeah, Wes is like, oh God. And then, it's obvious to Glockta that from West's face that there's not a lot that's being said. Wes continues on, saying how he knew he could have and should have done something to help her out. And Glockta can see well enough from experience that West is dealing with some major self-loathing. And then Glockta's even more surprised when West starts crying, thinking that he doesn't have any. But he's like, normally I don't. They start crying when I have the instruments, when I show them the instruments.
Yeah.
And
And he really awkwardly like reaches over and pats him on the shoulder. Like,
yeah, mad hesitant, right? He kind of like stops himself, and then he's like, no, I'm gonna go through with it. I'm gonna go through with it, and he just beep, beep, beep on his shoulder.
yeah.
Pop, pop.
I
And
imagine
then-
it's like all like robot like he just pats them and then they like lifts his hands up, pats them again. You know, like he's
Mhm.
all. It's so natural.
It is. And Glockta tries to assuage his angst. You know, he tells him like, "What can we do except try to be better?" Which it's like, wow, look at Glockta being fucking Oprah over here.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
he it's because he's telling that to himself too.
That's true. Yeah, he is, and he's astonished at his own capacity for empathy here. And West obviously is reassured by Glockta's words, and he knows that he has to make amends for his shitty behavior and his shitty actions. He asks Glockta again to look after her while he's gone, and Glockta's like, sure, yeah, and that he was once proud to call West his friend, and he would be again. And he even feels a tear about to drop. It's like, oh my god. And Glockta admits to himself that it was good. It felt good to have a friend again.
Mm.
Right?
And then Glockta
blurts-
remembers. Sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead.
No, do you want to start that again? I'll come in later.
Okay, I was gonna say he blurts out the name of those three sisters.
And he gets very swiftly brought back to reality when he asks that who was the name of that man? That man who was really good at telling stories that we that was in the army with us.
What's that quartermaster? Who was it? Some fat guy.
And suddenly the nice moment for Glockta is gone.
Well, I imagine they probably still laughed and talked afterwards because he goes right. He's like, Glockta's just like, oh, he became a merchant. Heard he moved north. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like they did catch up a little bit here afterwards.
Yeah. I felt like they had to. And that's essentially the end of this chapter. What do you guys rate that?
I'm gonna rate it a 7 out of 9
Mhm.
bangers, because like I said, this is like, in my opinion, the whole book for Glockta kind of builds up to this moment of, and it doesn't take much for people to realize that that their viewpoint on the world may be incorrect. And it also, for anybody who thinks that this book is all sad and depressing and dark and stuff, and the entire series, this is a highlight and one of several times where there is a very honest, sweet moment between two human beings that shows that there is good things and that people are sometimes just mistaken. And I really, really like that aspect here, because Glockta, like as I said earlier, it's like his climax here, and we see his behavior. It's subtle, but his behavior is actually a little bit different in these next books, because he's realized that it's not all terrible and that he was wrong.
Yeah, the empathy grows within Glockta throughout the trilogy.
I think he forgot what it was like to be in connection with another human being.
That's a very good point, Harrison.
George?
I think I'm going to give this one slightly higher, just a 7 and a knuckle. Because, like you say, it's Glockta's, his climax chapter for the book. It really wraps up a lot of what we've been told so far. And even though on the surface this is just, one person comes to another guy's room and then they, have an argument and then they reconcile and then just have a conversation. In any other book, this could be so boring and just a plot point that you've got to tick off. But it's just the writing is so good, and like you say, Harrison, like the moment is so human that it really gets you, doesn't it? So 8 out of 9.
First, like a point in the book, in my opinion, that kind of and there's a few other minor parts. It was the first point that actually made me be like, oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Aw, sheds tear.
A lot of that in this episode, guys.
Oh yeah. Prepare yourselves. For me, I'll give it a 7 out of 9 fingers. Really enjoyed this chapter. I did have a note, like you pointed out, George, like a fart. I enjoyed that West kept track of exactly how long it's been. Like it didn't seem like he hesitated.
It showed how much he still cares as well.
Right.
And
I like that. Go ahead.
I think what I really like about this chapter as well is that it's this stereotype, isn't it, where two characters hate each other and they're permanently opposed because they don't sit down and have a short conversation.
Yes. Absolutely agree. I hate it when that happens in books.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know about this part. If West ever hated Glockta, he just put him out of his mind.
No, I mean one way. Not Glockta does sort of resent West in that way.
Yeah, no, he does. He does for sure. I like that Glockta always had a way with women, apparently, which we all knew. He was basically Luthor turned up to like 11, right?
He was super Luthor.
Yeah, but he was better at being a fencer than him.
Yeah, he's better at the ladies. He's better at being a fencer. He was better at he's obviously smarter, He's better all around.
Yeah, he is. Just the way he was so flippant with like how like he's like, yeah, Ruse just went north. I really enjoyed this whole chapter. Was good, even though, like you said, it's just one conversation in one room from start to end. I really enjoyed it.
And George, that was a really good point about the two people sitting down instead of having a conversation, but also just like how it is in other books. It's in other books this is like a normal conversation, and this one it's much more real. I really like that what you said there.
Thank you.
Gang. All right, so we'll move straight on to our second chapter read through, just due to circumstances. So character spot will be coming right after. So this chapter is Back to the Mud. We start this chapter from the Dogman's perspective, and the dozen, which is really like what 5, 6 people, the dozen are outside of Carleon. And the last memory that Dogman has of Carleon was when they sacked it when they fought for Bethod back then. He notes that it's much bigger now, possibly the biggest city in the north. Compared to like Ophrith and other
it's definitely the
towns.
biggest city. Yeah.
Definitely, right? There are new roads, new bridges, and there's even glass in some of the windows, which Dogman, from what Logan said earlier, he's a fan of glass.
Like the way it breaks.
He likes the way it breaks. And
I think that's interesting because glass is one of those things, isn't it? If you've never seen it before, it could be like magic.
Oh yeah!
Whoa! I can see through it, but I can't put my hand through it.
It's the weirdest thing.
It's like a force field.
And then you punch it and it breaks, and you're like, "Wow!" It makes that sound.
Yeah.
Oh, kind of sharp. Cut myself. Fuck. And they even note that Carleon has a large wall around it now with towers and all. Three Trees doesn't like the look of it. He's worried about the prospect of sending Forley in there. They've returned to the camp where Dao and Duru are looking a bit more on edge than usual. And Forley's just sitting there looking up at the sky. We know he's nervous. He tells Dogman that he's not feeling good, but that you need to have fear in order to have courage. And Dogman smiles at this because that's what he said to Forley back then when they were going to like ambush the Shanka, I think it was, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Three Trees checks in again with Forley, asking if he's still sure. Like, you still want to go into Carleon? You sure you want to do this, buddy? And Forley's like, yep, yes, I am. And even though that he may be near shitting his pants, but he's more used going through with the plan than just doing nothing, which is sadly true.
And very brave.
Very brave.
Extremely brave. The poor little guy.
Poor little guy. Shut up, George.
Just move on before I cry.
Okay. So they go over the plan again, which is that Forley goes into Carleon, he meets with Bethod, and he warns him about the Shanka. Now, if Bethod has an issue with Forley, he is to tell Bethod that it's just him and Three Trees, and that Three Trees is by himself near the old bridge. So they all gather around, and Forley comments basically like, hey, it's been one hell of a ride. And Dao's like, shut up. You'll come back, Forley. Bethod's got nothing against you. It was somewhat of a grim moment for the dozen. They walk down together towards the outskirts of the trees. And here, Forley parts from the dozen and heads to Carleon. As he walks, Dow suddenly just wishes him luck. It basically startles the shit out of the rest of them. And
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, Dow?
he's like, Jesus Christ, Dow. And he waves, and then Forley walks past the bridge. And then Three Trees calls for weapons and for them to get to their places. Then the chapter jumps a little bit later. A while later, they are all in their predetermined location. Dogman's off to the side in some trees, and he sees a group of horsemen coming towards the bridge with a cart in their midst. He can count at least 10 men on horseback and 2 more on the cart with flatbows on either side of the driver, so like 13 in total. He signals Three Trees that there are people coming. So Dow and Duru, who are near Three Trees, split up, and they go like into like the little hiding spots. Although Duru is still visible to Dogman because he's taking position under the bridge. But you know, as long as they don't look around the bridge, Duru should be fine. That giant motherfucker.
I like to whenever they're parting with Forley, how Black Dow says, "Hey, good luck," and that all shocks them because Black Dow is such a bastard
Right.
that they're just like, why would he say that? Because
like,
he never
okay.
would say that before. It shows that Black Dow, yeah, he cares about Forley. They all do, but it's very clear that even Black Dow is like, okay, Forley, good luck. Even if he doesn't know how to express himself, he's sad that he's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sort of just blurts it out, doesn't he? Like he could have said it while Forley was still with him, but he waits that long, and he's just like, "Oh no, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I've got to say it before he goes."
That's true. That's true.
Drops his facade of evil deeds for a little while.
Well, it's all perspective, isn't it, George?
That's all it is. And the Three Trees he stays where he is. He doesn't move. He's at the end of the bridge. He's basically blocking the way past. On the near side where Dogman is. The group of horsemen, they come closer, and they see Three Trees and they hurry forward. They cross the far side and they're on the bridge now. They're all packed in while the cart is stopped at the far end of the bridge. The leader of this group, his name is Bad Enough. And
all right, son of a bitch from way back when.
Yeah, he addresses Three Trees and he asks him, "Hey, where's the rest of the crew? Especially that fucker Dow," and said that he hoped to be the one to kill that dirty bastard. Dogman's, he was like, "Please, shit." He's like expecting Dow to just like ruin the plan like he always does, but for once, he's waiting for the signal. This is how serious this is. That Dow is waiting for the signal, right? Three Trees, he tells Bad Enough that they all died except for him and Forley. And so he asks Bethod, Bad Enough, where's Bethod? And the answer is apparently that Bethod is not there. He's off in England making
kicking
war.
ass.
Kicking ass, taking names and kicking ass. So Calder is in Carleon. He's managing
Prince
things.
Calder.
And we already know that he's not the nicest guy.
He's a prick. So Three Trees repeats the message that Forley was to have taken to them, which is that there's flatheads everywhere and something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, he says they'll be down sometime next summer or sooner.
Just at the rate they're moving, right?
Yeah. Well, at how many they are, the flatheads, they don't really think about resource management. So whenever they run out of resources where they're at, they're just going to move on to the next place. So that's the issue, is that they're coming down from the high places because there's so many of them that now they're, they need more space. That's why they're coming down. And also, as a side note on the lore aspect is, yes, they're flat bows, which is what they have, which we've talked about earlier. But Dogman has never seen a flat bow, so he's got some kind of weird.
Hey, what is that? Yeah, what is that? A little bow on a block of wood. What
What kind of pussy ass shit is that?
Little ass bitch. So Bad Enough encourages Three Trees to come with them in the cart to tell Calder himself all about the flatheads. But Rudd Three Trees doesn't move, and he asks, "Where's Forley?" Bad Enough says that Forley is close enough, and again tells him to get on the cart, but Three Trees refuses and says he ain't going anywhere until he sees Forley. Bad Enough is getting testy now and threatens him to get on the cart, but Three Trees kind of just like stands firm, like you ain't moving the rock of Ufrith. and he asks, "Where's Forley again?" And this time he'll have a straight answer, or he's gonna have his guts, and not a sexual way.
A sexual way. What the
Oh,
fuck?
You never heard like
don't
someone
worry
get
about it, Harrison.
Harrison's
I'm
too
just
young.
so young.
He's
Oh,
so young and innocent.
what is sex? I'm just kidding.
Intercourse. So Bad Enough smiles, right? And he's like, "Okay, sure. We were gonna wait for Calder for this, but man, he just can't wait to see the look on Three Trees' face." So he says that Forley is in the cart. Well, most of him, that is. And Bad Enough reaches into his saddle and drops something near Three Trees' feet. It's Forley's head. Well, that was it, right? Fuck the plan.
I love that. That was it. Fuck the signal.
Fuck the signal. So Dogman starts shooting arrows and screaming, and Grim is out there shooting arrows as well. Three Trees, he crouches behind his shield, while Bad Enough and this other fucking rider tries to flank him. Dow, he comes flying out of the woodworks, the rocks above.
Fucking bastards!
Thank you, Harrison. And he crashes onto the other rider and takes him out quickly. And then out of nowhere, Tol Duru comes from the rear, and he's out here creating new pathways through some horseman's body, cleaving him in two. The Thunderhead is swinging his sword in a crushing circle, right? Laying waste to everyone in his path. Grim, he's just out here taking another rider that was about to stab Tol in the side. And one of the archers on the cart, flatbow fuckers, takes aim at Three Trees. And Dogman shoots at him, but he hurried the shot and he hit the driver in the shoulder. It's like, oh! And then that flatbow guy fired, and they see the effect of this. The bolt hit Three Trees' shield, and it penetrated, but not deep enough to like land a hit on him, but it was close. Tol takes out another rider. Grim, he neutralizes another one, and Dow cuts out the legs of the horse from under Bad Enough. Then they had the last couple of men trapped on the bridge, which Grim took care of quickly, because, that's our boy Grim. And the last archer tried to run away, but Dogman takes him out. The driver, he pops his head up, like, huh? And then Dogman just shoots him right through the mouth. Three Trees and Dow, they take care of the last stragglers, and Dogman sees Bad Enough in the stream, trying to escape. And this fucker is unwittingly coming towards Dogman, right for him. And Three Trees wants him alive. He's like, get him alive! So Dogman shoots him in the leg. Dogman then makes it towards the Bad Enough. He walks up to him, and Tol and Dow are hurrying over there as well. And Bad Enough looks at Dogman, he surrenders, and he starts to say something. But we'll never know, since apparently Dogman had just shoved his knife into Bad Enough's throat. And then Dogman, he didn't really realize that he did that. It was more of a automatic response, I guess, after seeing Forley's head. And Dow comments on, well, that's that. And Three Trees, he admonishes Dogman a bit, saying that they could have asked him questions and sent him back there with the message, like, we fucking did this, you cocksuckers. But Duru does point out that no one really cares about the old ways anymore, and that Calder and them, they'll be looking for them anyway. Dow approves of what the Dogman did, and which is something when you get Dow's approval. And Dow decides that Bad Enough's head would make a nice ornament near the stream. So, and I like how Dow just kind of like takes time to like the head perfectly on the spear.
Can't rush an artist.
You can't rush an artist, that's true. And Tol and Dow, they ask Three Trees, like, what's next? And he takes some time and he answers that he's heading south. And they'll bury Forley along the way. And the guys are confused as to why would we go south. And Three Trees says, well, he wants to go to the Union. And then they're like, fuck the Union. What what did Tol Duru say? Like, those women. And then he says he wants to join up with the Union, as any fight against Bethod is his fight now. So what happens? Calder fucked up here. He fucked up. And they all agree to join him because, of course. So they agree to join him. You guys have something to say about the battle?
It really does show like how like fearsome these guys are, that they can take out twice as many. And these aren't the dregs. These are like named men, Carls, really strong fighters. They've got solid armor, shields, and swords, and they can really just take them down without an issue.
Yeah, and these guys are also they have every advantage. They have the numbers, they have the armor. Yeah, they're being ambushed, but like I said, numbers, the armor, the horses. They have flat bows. The other group is emotional, is emotionally distraught, and they still wipe them out. It's basically no problem.
It helped that the bridge was like they were packed on the bridge, all the horses in that
Oh yeah,
narrow space. It nullifies their numbers. But it was an intense battle,
yeah.
right?
I think this is the closest we get to sort of like except for in later, but we actually get sort of a climactic final battle, even though the stakes aren't that huge, especially for these guys who only have 4 chapters in this book. But we do get sort of like the final fight, even if it is quite small in scale, which is something that Joe does very well.
It's much more personal.
Mm.
And I like, as always, Joe's little battles are always very cool. But I really like Dogman's character right here, where he's the whole time he's kind of a bit more nice than everybody else. He's a bit more also laid back, I guess. And then he just gets pissed off. He just kills the guy, no problem. Like he
Doesn't even hesitate.
that's how distraught he is. He doesn't even realize how distraught he is because he just does it and then is like afterwards like, damn, guess I was really upset about that.
Whoops. And I like how Three Trees, that guy's got to be like a big dude too. Just the fact to be able to block the path off the bridge. I mean, he obviously bad enough, and that other rider were able to kind of like get around him and like poking at him with the spear. But this dude is he's just there behind his shield. The man's practically immovable. That's probably why they call him the Rock of Ufrith.
That is true, and like you say, like they're all fearsome in their own ways, and it's just a good setup for these guys going into the next book, I think.
Absolutely. So then it's a little while later, and it's raining, and the dozen are far off their path, and they had just buried Forley. They made sure to stray that far so that no one would be able to find his burial site or accidentally come upon it. They stood around the mound of dirt, and Three Trees starts to speak fondly of Forley. He might have been the weakest fighter, but he had a strong heart. Back to the mud, our sweet prince.
The strongest.
The strongest. And Dao kneels beside the mound, and he sets his hand on it, and he says, it says it again, it says, back to the mud. And Dogman swore that there was a tear dripping from Dao's face, but there's no way. It's Black Dao. And I like the last line that Dogman, like, he thinks to himself that he's the coward of the group now.
Yeah, this is showing where Dogman kind of puts himself. Dogman doesn't think very highly of himself, at all. Even though Dogman is, he just doesn't. I mean, I guess the way to think about it is, everybody in the North, especially these guys, are the hardest motherfuckers out there. So if you're not the hardest motherfucker, you clearly must not be great. But at the same time as Dogman is saying this, Dogman is also missing the point at this time, what it means to actually be like a good person, to have good qualities. It's like he doesn't understand what the good qualities are supposed to be. And because he even denies that Black Dao, there's no way he's crying, because he thinks, well, Black Dao is so scared that's his thing. He doesn't quite grasp that it's okay to have that emotion, that it's okay to be the most scared, that it's good to have these more kind qualities. And he doesn't think it's a bad thing, but he also doesn't realize the worth of it, which is why he places himself as, he puts himself basically at the bottom of the group in his own mind.
Ooh, that is interesting. A lot of interesting points from you this episode, Harrison.
Yeah, good job.
It's a psychology, man. I can't get over it. What do you think, George?
I think you're absolutely right. You really get into the Dogman's head here. And like you say, the way that everything that he's been exposed to his whole life is just about being the hardest bastard around. So to think
they are able...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, after you.
I was just going to say, they are able to differentiate between maybe not good, but like there's being hard and then there's being evil, Dao, remember he tried to defend earlier against Tolderu. He's like, my name's blacker than it should be. I never did that shit. And everyone knows that Three Trees, he's a hard dude, but everyone views him in a positive light, whereas they remark that Bethod's an evil bastard, etc., etc. So there is like a gradient of it's either from really tough and an asshole to evil.
Yeah.
The gradient of bastardry, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of just mean from Dogman's perspective.
Right, from Dogman's perspective. He probably thinks he's the coward just because he's always having to piss.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what a little bitch having to piss all the time. And as always, Black Dao is such a fantastic character.
Yeah.
He, I remember the first time reading this, I thought, oh, there's a little bit more there. But for some reason, this is the first time that you see Black Dao and you actually think, oh, there's a little bit more there than him just being an antagonistic guy. But I don't know, there's a lot going on there. I wonder, this isn't even too much of a spoiler, but Black Dao was a young carpenter once. And
no, Potter.
Potter. Oh, a Potter.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you, he was a young kid at one point. He's a smaller guy himself. He's not like the other guys. He's not as big.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, if Forley reminded him of himself when he was younger, before his innocence was taken away. And that's why he's so upset by this, is because he's like just another innocent thing gone, just like himself.
Mm-hmm.
That's complete speculation, but no other people in the entire series after they died is blacked out like this, even later on.
Well, okay, we'll not spoil. We'll get to it. What do you guys rate that chapter?
I think I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 9 fingers. Like, you get so much character work with, like you say, Black Dao, with Dogman, with Three Trees, and with Forley as well.
With our sweet prince.
And I can't say it anymore.
Okay, Harrison.
I think I'm gonna do 7 and a knuckle.
7 and a knuckle.
I think it's done really well. But I feel like this whole section means a lot more whenever you're rereading it for a second time, whereas the first time it's okay, but the impact of how all the characters are acting doesn't feel as intense until you read it a second time. So,
and I think that comes with, because we only get like 4 chapters with them in this book.
Exactly.
I think that's it. Well, in spite that, I will go along with George and give it an 8. I agree, and I'm also interested in wondering what Carleon looked like back then. It probably looked like a ramshackle of a town, right? Like maybe some huts here and there, and then the fact that it grew to be basically what we can call the capital of the North. I wonder, like, what were the logistics for the transformation?
Well, Bethod, so they conquered it, right? And it had gates and walls and everything, but it was only the walls around Scarling's Hall up at the top. Because those walls got torn down and rebuilt, but those were where the original walls were. And then I imagine it was kind of like a kind of a more of a medieval Moat and Bailey. So you had like the keep up there where Scarling's Hall was, where the nicer little places were, and then down in the city you had probably maybe a palisade, maybe it was a stone wall, but not as high. But it was nicer and bigger than the other cities, but also it wasn't as advanced. And now it's bigger and more advanced. And I think it's probably where the difference comes, because Bethod is smart. He knows that he needs to have a strong central position and a very strong place of power in case something happens where he comes under siege, or somebody can't just climb the wall super easily.
No, that's true.
So
that's true. Question, not to be any type of way, Mr. Adeptus. Is it Moat and Bailey or Mott and Bailey?
George?
I thought it was Motte.
It's I think Mott is basically it's like the primogenitor for the word moat.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
Harrison,
it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Sorry, I can't help but be a pedantic cunt. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. The river as well, because it sits at the fork in the river. So it's in a really good position anyway. So my guess is, think about how tough you'd only be able to attack it from one side really anyways. Because apparently one of the bridges is new. Because when we learn later on is that one bridge is wood and the other one is stone. So the stone one is obviously older, the wood one is newer. So
Okay.
it'd be very difficult to attack it anyways. You throw up a palisade and then you have a keep, which no other place in the north has, as far as we know. Not like that. Then it's suddenly a massive fortress.
Right. And you had said that like no other place like had walls, but didn't Ofrith had walls?
Yeah.
Isn't that like high up on like the not on the river? I think on like the shore, the coast, right?
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
coast, yeah. Because they have
But
a
you
little
can
harbor.
think about walls as sort of like it's a very big range. If we're talking
Okay.
about like Carlians, well, I'm imagining sort of like 8 to 10 feet tall, hard masonry. Whereas you can throw up anything and call it a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, we know that Ufrith has pretty good walls as well. If we're going off of size and everything, it's probably Carleon than Ufrith. They were probably more comparable before Bethod, but now it's very clear that Carleon is the bigger and the stronger in terms of structure city.
Right. Right. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I really enjoyed that chapter. I gave it an 8 because, like everyone said, the character work, how we see Dow have a soft spot for Forley. Did you know that there's some speculation? I don't know if it's on Reddit or Discord that apparently Dow and Forley, people were shipping them together. You know, they're like, oh, those two. That's hilarious. But,
I normally hate shipping, but that just works so well.
that's just so funny.
He's just so sad.
He's just like, oh
He's
my
even
god.
more tragic.
Yeah, fuck your deep analysis, Harrison. Where it's like, oh, it's just
Okay.
the shadow of its own innocence. No, they're just shagging.
Yeah, bro. They just fucking.
They're just tagging, like you said. That's fucking hilarious. Well, that's if we go by what the people on the internet say.
They're always right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our character spot, and who else could it be?
But Foley.
Who wants to start off with this eulogy? Who wants to do it? I don't have.
I'm being honest. I'll get this out of the way.
Uh-huh.
Is even now after reading it all these times, I understand Forley's place and everything, and I know because he's just so like normal in comparison to how dark the series is. It's like, oh no, he's so sweet and sad, and I understand it. But I've also just been like, yeah, I like this aspect of him, how he's brave and everything. But I don't get super torn up about him dying. I feel more bad for everybody else being like, oh, that's sad. We cared about him. I'm like, oh, that is sad. But like himself, I'm like, yeah, I get it. He was brave at the end, and that's sweet. But if he was around for a little bit longer, we had some more chapters with him, got to see more of his character, I probably would have cared more. But it's difficult for me to be like, wow, he's such an amazing. It's such a tragic time because to me it's like, yeah, he was a good guy, and I like his character that he is brave at the end, but that's all he is. It's just brave at the end.
How dare you besmirch the name of our baby? I will not stand for this slander, Harrison. I will not stand for it.
First Malachus, then this bastard.
What is with you, huh? Is there something you see in yourself in them that you don't like, huh?
Jesus.
Okay. You're right, Jeff. You're right.
What are you, lazy, huh?
Okay, I'm not courageous.
Oh no. Okay. Oh man, we don't even have an autobiography. We don't have a biography for Forley, do we?
No.
We don't know that much about him at all. Like Harrison said, we don't get a lot of time with this character.
Right.
He's probably got about 10 lines in the whole series. He's only in the first book, but you know what I mean.
Right. We know that I think he had his name prior to it, but the name was really cemented when he challenged Logan to a duel, but basically just said, "Listen, man, I'm surrendering."
Yeah.
They were like, "Who's the person that sucks the most ass in a fight?" Oh, Forley, send his ass out there. And do we know what town or settlement that was from?
No, no. If I
No.
had to guess,
Mm.
if I had to guess, Forley was a thrall who was, in a group of people and they were fighting probably Bethod or something, and then he got in a big fight, and then he was the only one who survived, and then but he didn't do anything that fight, but he still survived, and they're like, well, you survived, so you deserve a name, but also you're a fucking pussy. So, which is not okay in the North. So they gave him a name and they kept him around as like a joke.
That's interesting. I like that.
You could go in complete speculation and say that, before this time, before he was with the crew, he was literally just the joke of the clan. Like they kept him around on purpose, like a jester, like a joker, because he's just the weak, and everybody hates weak men in the North. So it's like, Forley, we send Forley to do it, whatever. And so whenever Logan spared him because he was like, oh, this is just sad, he actually finally had a group of people. Yes, they knew he was his weakest, but they treated him as a brother, which he never had. And which is why he's willing to lay his life down. But that's complete speculation, but I like the story.
No, well, I mean, it's a great story. And there's like I don't want to say juxtaposition, but there's almost like like it's funny that you mentioned that, like how he got his name and all that stuff, like the speculation, considering what we know from a specific character in the Heroes.
Right.
And got it. Yeah. So that's
Think about
cool.
how many people actually got their names in that fashion though, just by accident.
Right. Exactly. George, you didn't really say much in this character spot. I mean, I know you're struggling. But
What do you mean?
What
I'm
the
just
hell,
waiting for
Jeff?
you guys to finish.
Oh, okay. No, because you're like, you just can't say anymore. I just want to make sure you're okay.
Okay.
Don't be so defensive, man.
I've got to say, in this chapter, we got I think it's quite obvious what's going to happen to Forley. If you consider Joe's way of, trying to, I hate using the phrase subvert expectations now that has kind of been tainted, but just the fact that everyone's saying goodbye to him and that even Black Dow's just like, oh, don't worry about it, you're coming back and all that. It's just so kind of obvious that he's not coming back.
Right. I don't think Joe subverted expectations. I think he was like, no, this is exactly how it's going to go.
Exactly, yeah.
He was just like, well, clear as day, buddy.
And I always think this is really strange. Like, what's fucking Calder's plan here? And, he's going to kill Forley, and then he's going to send his heads out to go and see them, and then like, does he expect all these 10 guys just to be able to take them out? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I know
just 3 trees. He's not the smartest motherfucker.
Right.
As much as people like to think he is.
He is pretty smart, but I think he becomes smarter when he becomes older, like we see in the Heroes.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He is smarter than the average bear, but he's not as smart as he likes to think he is.
That's true. That's probably true. But he's young here. He's young and he's a hothead, and we know that Scale is the one that's more of a brute, more of a fighter. So there's probably like self-loathing coming from Calder there, and he probably sees himself in Forley, and he wants to snuff it out.
Oh, interesting point, Jeff. That's interesting.
I took psychology. I know what I'm talking about.
I am educated.
I educated. Gorsh. All right. Well, anybody want to say anything else for our sweet prince?
No, just rest in peace, Forley. No more pain. No more fear.
No more fear. Back to the mud.
Back to the mud.
All right, and so we'll move on to our next segment, which is we have renamed it the community interaction segment. So this is for questions and polls and all of that jazz here. Take it away.
So we did, after a little bit of fussing up, we actually put some, and by the way, for everybody, this is a spoiler section from now on. This is, for all those people who like spoilers, this is where we'll be discussing it, but mostly just on the topic that we are going through.
I'll announce the the time frame. So, hello everyone. This is your Lord Chamberlain Jeff. Just checking in with you guys. Hope you're enjoying the episode. Just want to let you know that the upcoming segment does contain spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled because you're a first-time reader, make sure to just go ahead and skip up into 1 hour and 5 minutes. That should take you right to the end of the episode. All right? Enjoy now.
So for this week's poll, we did favorite lamb moments in Red Country, which is kind of a part 2 to our Bloody Nine outings in the original trilogy. But everybody knows the Bloody Nine's in the original trilogy, and we accidentally put Bloody Nine outings in Red Country. People started losing their minds. They're like, "What do you mean? Like, this is a spoiler." Apologies.
I'm just going to own up to that one. That was my fault. So sorry if I spoiled for the 5 people who didn't know that.
Just so for the listeners know that most of the time it's George on Reddit, but Harrison does take control of the reins for the account sometimes. I'm hands off. I don't touch that shit.
It's pretty advanced for his older disposition.
Yeah, it's too much buttons. Too many. Too many.
Too much buttons.
Too much buttons, man.
So for the moments in Red Country that we picked here, I think George's opinion is that every single moment in Red Country he is just the Bloody Nine. But I'm talking about those times where it's clear that he's just like in the zone of I'm the Bloody Nine. I don't give a fuck. Even if he knows he's in that zone, he's fully embracing it in these moments where he's just killing people. So we picked Lamb's bar fight with the kidnappers in that beginning of Red Country. Lamb's fighting the ghost in the sandstorm, which I think a lot of people forgot about. But it's because it's more ambiguous because you just hear like him laughing and then the ghosts are like dead. Mm-hmm. And then whenever they are meeting with the ghost and he kills Sanjeed.
Mm-hmm. That was badass. Jesus Christ.
Then whenever he is fighting Glamour Golden in the ring, which won the poll because that part is so iconic. Like anytime you think of the Bloody Nine, this is like one of those scenes where you think of it. You either think of that or you think of Stone Shitter. Mm-hmm. So, and then number 5, we picked Lamb almost killing Shy in the caves, which is really, really big for Logan's character. And then number 6, Lamb and Savion versus the Casca Mercs, which is also super iconic and really kind of creepy and intimidating and terrifying. That got second place on the poll, followed up by Lamb's bar fight with the kidnappers, then killing Sanjeed, then almost killing Shy in the caves, then fighting the ghost in the sandstorm. So I appreciate everybody who was a part of it and gave their opinion. Sorry for the spoiler aspect, but everyone makes mistakes. Everybody has those days, you know.
Mm-hmm. What was your personal favorite, Harrison?
Lamb and Glamour Golden.
Lamb and Glamour Golden. Okay.
What about
you, Jeff?
For me, it's I don't know, man. That bar fight with just that build in intensity once they track him down. And it's not even like it's Lamb. It's not the Bloody Nine. He almost gets to him, right? You know, when he drags that one kid out to like hang his ass, but when Shy snaps him out of it, like he got there. So just talking about like a Lamb moment, just that intensity. You know, just building it. He's talking to the barman. He's talking about how, you know, they're tracking some people. And then the 3 guys are like, oh, fuck. and then he's like, well, where'd the trail lead? And then he goes, the end of your fucking legs. I was like, oh, my goodness gracious. So now if we're talking straight Bloody Nine outing, it's got to be the one where what happens in the shack and how he takes out Jubair.
Yeah.
Jubair, he's like, what is it Jubair keeps saying? He keeps saying like, God. And then he's like, no, but I'm here. Something to that effect. I was like, oh, wow.
It's so badass.
Yeah.
And I like how...
I can't wait to talk about Red Country.
Oh, man, I love Red Country.
I know. There's so many amazing fucking Logan moments inside that series. He's like the main character.
And there's no POV, so we're just seeing him.
We know his character so well in Red Country. I was talking to George about this the other day that you know what he's thinking whenever he is whenever you see him take an action. You know exactly what Logan is thinking in that moment, even without him saying anything. It's awesome.
True. That's true. George?
I think my favorite's got to be when he kills Sanjeed.
Ooh, nice.
Because I like it how it's set up. They all sit down, and we know that this is in Red Country. It's been sort of set up by Sweet, so that they can, harass them a bit, and then come away, and then they'll split the money and all that. And Lamb just goes nope, and just cuts his head right fucking off right there. And it's like everybody's just like, what?
Well, yeah, because think about it, the ghosts, they fucked up. They, instead of like just harassing them a bit, they went full on just murdering people, and so then especially when they murdered that kid. What was his name? The kid that they picked up when they were tracking the 3 guys to the bar. You know what I'm talking about.
Leaf.
Yes.
Oh, that was rough.
Yeah,
Leaf, yeah, right? Something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, like, Logan kind of got to know him. He got to know everybody. And they're out here just killing people. Like, Logan he is not going to let that lie.
Yeah, it is a really good part because it shows, it's basically the best. It's not the best outcome, but it's the most effective outcome. That's basically Lamb says, yeah. And he's not defending. I like how whenever he's talking about it too, he's not saying, "Oh yeah, this is morally the right thing to do." He's just saying, "Well, it fucking worked." So
yeah. And I love how this is one of the only times that he gets a positive reaction. Like he gets back to the caravan, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, well done."
Yeah, good job, Lamb. You
which is
murdered that old
interesting.
dude that couldn't move, that invalid. Yeah, good job.
Because whenever inside of the original trilogy and before, Logan would be like, "Yes, thank you for the praise." That's what he lived for at one point.
You said
And
before the
here-
original trilogy?
Before the original trilogy, and honestly, a little bit in the original trilogy as well. The fear, getting that high on being the most feared man in the North. He does not like that in Red Country. There's a bit of growth there, and I really like that aspect too. When he comes back from killing Sanjeev.
But I felt like in the original trilogy, anytime like Baez or anybody say like the Bloody Nine, most feared man in the North, he'd always like kind of like, hunch his shoulders in shame.
Well, yes, until we get to Last Argument of Kings, where he's yeah.
But I don't know if he enjoys it. Remember, in the conversations, well, wait, this is very spoilery, but the conversations he has with Dogman, it's not necessarily, I don't think he enjoys it. He just feels like that's the way to go about it once you're back in the North.
Right, but
old
like
habits die hard.
Yeah, but it's still fucked up.
Oh, no, it is. Sure. I agree.
But yeah, I think as for the comments that people said on here, most of them were like quotes for people being like the ends of your fucking legs, God, like the one we were talking about, God gone, but I am here. And then you think I care a fuck whenever he is talking to what's his face, the guy who's in charge of the
the right hand of the dragon or some shit like that.
Yeah, when he's talking to him, somebody mentioned that part as well. How they said they really like
Wedner. What a fucking nerd. Right.
And so, but anyways, everybody really likes these moments, I think, because everyone's always like quoting him, and they really do, especially with Pacey. Just gives you the chills anytime fucking the Bloody Night's going off in Red Country.
I think there's a really good one here that isn't really a Bloody Nine moment, but like you say, this is all pretty much the Bloody Nine when he's talking to, I think he's talking to Papa Ring, and he's just like, "This ain't about them. You stole them from me, fucker, from me." And it's just like, oh.
Yeah, no, that's the way to news part.
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah,
right,
yeah. It's whenever they're standing over the little steam area that the Gouts.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
And then he's,
that's
the part, that the guy's talking about. And that actually had the most upvotes in this from the comments.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. There you go. All right. And then everybody, you guys will see it come up, the same time this episode comes out. But we'll start going down the list of non-POV characters to see everyone's favorite, because there's some crazy good ones that we never get to see. So I'm going to try to go through it here and figure out the best ones are, what I think would be people having a hard time picking.
So are we going to split that up by book or?
I'm going to think about it here and decide what the best one to do is. We might split it up by book. We might split it up just, we might have like a tournament, split it up by book and then go into it. But we could also, there is just some amazing ones that might just we might not need to pick out every single one. Because sometimes people get weird with polls. They're like, why is there even a poll? We already know what everyone's favorite is going to be. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I know.
I'll think about it.
Those
Okay.
people don't have any fun.
No, they do not. Okay, so that was our community interaction segment. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. As you all know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot to us.
Join us next week as we cover Misery and the Bloody Nine.
And as always, guys, make sure to check out our social media and our new website, which is going to be up when this episode comes out. So check that out. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that you use to listen to podcasts on. And please rate and review this podcast as it helps to spread our reach. Thank you all again for listening.
We're the poor, and the ground's richer for it.